Shabbat Shalom, Kol Halal Yahweh Bashem Shabbat Shemakakadash, double honors to the elder apostles and elder bishops of GMS, including the elders that came before them, taught us this truth. Shabbat Shalom and salutations, all the brothers out pushing the word of truth and in sincerity, the hopeful elect tabernacle of David. I'm the brother Yashawan, back with the WW3 Daily Update on a Monday. Shabbat Shalom to you as well. I'm going to start right here. Joel 3 and 9 in the Berean. Proclaim this among the nations. Prepare war. Rouse the mighty men. Let all the men of war advance and attack. All right? And that's all we're going to read. And then we're going to let Marf here of Marf Google News. Come on, Marf. We're going to let him just rant and give a little news update about things surrounding the war and the world, right? Things going on here in Babylon the Great. So this is 2 days ago. Drills, countries are picking sides. They're gathering. Okay, for picking sides for what? For World War III. All right, so let's listen to Mark. Go ahead.
So first of all, welcome. Thank you guys. I hope people share this out. Obviously, things are getting a lot closer to a very, very horrendous situation. People are very torn about what is really happening. Most people think, everything is a distraction. I believe that there is a good, solid group of things that are being distracted away from. But I also think when everyone is on the same page about something, if 99% of people think something is a distraction, that's also alarming, because then that means if there was some sort of four-dimension chess going on, then we might be falling into a trap as well. If everyone is on the same page, then they either didn't do their job as an op, or they did their job too well, and everybody doesn't think anything of it. So just keep that in mind. A lot of other things are being said, of course. Now, since we covered about 2 or 3 days ago, we covered this base that had the balloons on it in China. And if you go back to that show, we actually show the satellite images of where they say that a lot of these things are coming from. I'm not so worried about the objects that are popping up all over, but I will say this. The places that they are popping up are obviously connected to this conflict, either with China and Taiwan, or, of course, Eastern Europe and with Russia and UKR. So with that being said, if you look at the other technology that China has been putting forward, is they're heavily focused on autonomous drones. If you look at their carriers that they just put out, of course, it's an entire carrier that doesn't have to have a single staff member on it. It is as large as a carrier, but it actually has drones on it. I also heard that is not only these balloons can deliver, of course, missiles, they could drop, gravity-fed missiles. They can even launch off these things. It can be a delivery system for EMP, and they can actually deliver drones. So that was something, and if you have these things in numbers, and we're talking about tens of thousands, that would be a huge, huge deal. Now, not as worried about what they're saying now, but in the future, in WW3, these things will actually come in handy, and we will most likely see it. They're very cheap to make compared to, say a jet or something else that can go through the air, and they can send a whole ton for not a lot. That would be on top of all of the other things that are going into their military. First of all, the Pentagon's top China official has arrived in Taiwan. So this is a big story because obviously we've heard the rhetoric from China saying that if you visit Taiwan, any country that visits Taiwan is on their ish list. And now the Pentagon's top China official, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Michael Chase, has arrived in Taiwan for a visit. The Financial Times reported on Friday, citing a source on a trip that could exacerbate tension between Beijing and Washington. Taiwan's defense and foreign ministry did not immediately respond to a request for comment, and neither did the Pentagon. Speaking earlier on Friday, Taiwan Defense Minister Chow Ko-shang said that he was not very certain about the report that the trip would take place. Chow asked whether Chase would be coming, said that those who are friendly to us are very welcome. But so far, it's not very certain, he told the reporters on the sidelines of the parliament session. He says, I won't explain the details, he said, but I won't explain until I get formal notification. Chase said that the most senior U.S. defense official to visit the island since 2019. So something is possibly going on in the background here. We know that there's been a lot of weird escalations and possible escalations that we don't even know about because all of these different events are going on. There's an unusual amount of just odd activities, things crashing, derailing, all sorts of things. But other than that, we are actually having outages. We're having cyber events, or seemingly having cyber events that no one is talking about. Whole cell phone backlines going down. Of course, people, if you go to Down Detector, by the way, just read some of the comments. Some people are not getting cell phone service, text messages, data for a week at a time. They might get it once a day. So something is going on maybe with infrastructure, or maybe they all of the main companies leased off of a company that made a huge mistake or something. But it also could be somebody screwing with our infrastructure behind the scenes. Of course, they wouldn't tell us until it would be last minute. And then Zelensky warned Belarus against entering the conflict. So we covered a very small article that said that Belarus said, oh, well, we're not going to join WW3 unless somebody attacks us. So what I said on the show is, what do you think I bet is going to happen? No matter, we won't know who actually did it, but I'm sure if there's a random attack in Belarus or something lands in Belarus, I could probably bet that that's going to be happening. And of course, they're going to be joining. They made it very clear to put it out there before they joined that we will only join if something happens to us. And then, of course, Zelensky replied, and it says, quote, we believe that today there is no probability and high risk of such a thing. They can enter from Belarus, but it is difficult. First, it is difficult to attract Belarusian soldiers to them, Russians to their ranks, to unite them. It said that Zelensky called Belarus entry into the war a big mistake, because Belarusians, in principle, as we understand, do not want to fight against UKR. The vast majority of people don't want to. We have analytical figures, 80%. That is why it is very difficult to get the support of Belarus in the process, why it will be very difficult to attract them, Belarusians, but the Russians, will do it without a doubt. What can I say? It will be a big mistake for Belarus, a big, historically significant mistake, because it is one of the things when aircraft or missiles flew into its territories from some airports, from some territories that they did not control, they were under the control of Russia. That's one thing. But it's another matter if you deliberately go onto the offensive and join the Russian TIS, right? At that moment, you become a T or and thereby make Belarus part of Putin's regime and the war of conquest. At the same time, you will become the subject of a future loss, a trial, a tribunal, compensation for everything that Vlad has already done and unfortunately continues to do so. Basically, he's saying that you'll be put on for war crimes and all of this stuff, and at the very end, you're going to suffer from it. So I don't know if these big words are for the people of that. I don't know who wrote this for him, but again, this whole speech basically says, don't join whatever else. It's setting it up for the public, for Belarus to be joined, and we've been watching Belarus. We knew that they're most likely going to join since the very beginning. I mean, that should be common knowledge that they're very close with Vlad. But at the same time, anything that comes out of that is probably, any of these countries is probably Ganda. So you take everything with a grain of salt. Now, I'm going to talk about here in a second, South Africa is now joining. If you remember when Russia and China joined together with their navies and started cruising down to South Africa, I actually specifically asked people in the audience, I said, why would they specifically be going down to that area, and what strategically would be the reason for that? And as they were going down, the one Russian ship, I believe it was the Gorkov, and you can totally correct me because it's something like Gorchev or whatever. It ended up taking a right and then going over towards the East Coast, and that's when everybody started covering that nuclear-capable destroyer or battleship that ended up going over to the East Coast off of New York and East Coast, at least within 600 miles, which is their range. When that happened, now all of a sudden we have news of South Africa joining. So I'll talk about that here in just a second. But of course, it says that nearly Russia's entire army in UKR is, quote, suffering from First World War levels of attrition. At least that's the quote out of UK. We don't know what to believe right now, but we do know that virtually all of their good, frontline guys, the elite guys, they are now in this conflict. How I want to also point out a lot of these platforms that have been basically all of their media has essentially been banned and put to the very corner of the internet. But I will say, after going through some kind of work to even get to some of the sites around the world that actually cover Russia, outside of Russia and inside of Russia, there's a lot being said over there. They're telling their people that not only we are the adversaries, but we are directly involved. They are rallying their people for a world war against the U.S. They're not mincing words about it. Even on R&T, their news network, they're putting out stuff basically saying that we did this, we did that, they did this, that we need to do something about this, and we need to do it now. It's not just like the normal rhetoric, like, oh, we'll fire missiles and fury. They're actually convincing their entire population to go to war with the U.S.
Good enough, Marv. We'll get two scriptures and we'll go ahead and close it. All right, let's get I will stir up the Medes. What is the Most High Yahweh Shem Yahushai doing? Stirring up the Medes. Look, let's read it in the NLT, Isaiah 13:17. Look, I will stir up the Medes against Babylon. That's what Marv just said. The Medes are the Russians. Babylon is the American, bribed with gold. Listen to what Marv said one more time, real quick. I'm going to pull it back. What does he say about Russia and the United States?
All of their good, frontline guys, the elite guys, they are now in this conflict. I want to also point out a lot of these platforms that have been basically all of their media has essentially been banned and put to the very corner of the internet. But I will say, after going through some kind of work to even get to some of the sites around the world that actually cover Russia, outside of Russia and inside of Russia, there's a lot being said over there.
Listen to what he said about Russia being at war with the U.S. The Most High is stirring up the Medes against Babylon. He's going to say it.
Their people that not only we are the adversaries, but we are directly involved. They are rallying their people for a world war against the U.S. They're not mincing words about it. Even on R&T, their news network, they're putting out stuff basically saying that we did this, we did that, they did this, that we need to do something about this, and we need to do it now.
The Nord Stream pipeline.
It's not just like the normal rhetoric, like, oh, we'll fire missiles and fury. They're actually convincing their entire population to go to war with the U.S.
All right. Again, let's look at it one more time. Look, that's the Most High Yahweh, will stir up the Medes. He's provoking Russia, right, to go against America, right? And they can't be bought off. Nobody can turn this thing around. So what is that going to result in? It will result in World War III. Revelation 11 and 14, the second woe has passed. Behold, the third woe is coming shortly. Second World War, Third World War. All right, so with that, we hope that the elect will edify you, brothers and you sisters. Shabbat Shalom.